Hello and thanks for joining School of the American Rifle. This is part 3 of our Ruger Secret Shopper series. We're now going to do the upper receiver groups. First thing we're going to do with the ones that have a front sight base is we're going to check to see if the front sight post is actually aligned in relation to the upper receiver. And we have a front sight post alignment gauge. And then we're going to take a Midwest URR that we have not used to remove or install barrel nuts or muzzle devices. It keeps the teeth here from being chewed up, and this can be used as a gauge to tell whether or not the barrel extension is in alignment with the upper receiver. Some people think that you can't do anything to cause misalignment, but you can, and it depends on the fixtures and tools you use to tighten the barrel nut down. So let's check this front sight. We're going to mount our carry handle, and you have to use a good carry handle. This one is a Colt carry handle that I've used in many videos before, and this one was checked thoroughly to see if it's true, and it was, and this is off a good bit. We should be getting the needle pointing towards the post, and it's towards the very outer edge of it. So our front sight post is pushed this way to the right. So you may come close to running out of adjustment depending on your distance, depending on where the barrel's actually pointing. It's a worst case scenario. Some people will argue, like Palmetto State Armory did with did the retro videos, that there's no such thing as a perfectly straight front sight base. Not true. Lots of Colts are perfectly straight, and this one is better. Not perfect, but pretty darn good. So gun number 6 has a true enough front sight base. Gun number 7 is a little off. We're going to pull this off, and then we're going to check with the Midwest URR to see if our barrel extensions are aligned. We want this to fall under its own weight, and it does. Pass. We'll stay right here. We'll get the other upper. Pass. Let's go to one of the railed units. Fail. It's misaligned, but I can push past it. So that is misaligned some. This one's tight. I can push past it. This one's good. Nice and clean. So we have 4 and 5 that are slightly misaligned. This one's off. 2. And number 1. Off a little. You can hear it click. Let's go back to these two real quick. No, I can push past it. We're okay. Right there. So this one's a little off too. Let's see if we can detect anything in the extension from test firing where the bolt may have crashed into the extension, and I see it right there. Let me get my pointer. Right there. Not a whole lot of damage in numerous places, but there is some damage there where the bolt had rolled it over. That's probably during test fire. Let's look at the one that's pretty bad. I don't see any damage. It's always a good sign. So we'll say number 2 and number 5 were misaligned. Let me write that down. So how can you fix that? Pretty easy. As long as you haven't been continuously firing the gun, you can brake torque on the barrel nut, put it in the proper fixture, tighten things down, and you should be good to go. What will happen is imagine that this is your bolt coming home, and instead of nicely, cleanly going through the barrel extension lugs, it hits a little bit and then has to wiggle through in order to go into battery. And then the same thing happens when it unlocks and tries to cycle to the rear. So that's why we use this as a gauge. We're going to take the handguards off now. And these Rugers, they thread off instead of pulling the delta ring to the rear. I'm not sure why they did this. I like the old delta ring design, but it is a little easier to take apart. Maybe that was the reasoning. Oh, there's some aerosol. That's a good sign. I like to see that. All right, let's see if these things are loose. We have all of our free-floated rails. That wasn't very tight at all. That one was a little snug. I'm not sure if these have any locking devices in them. Let's see if it'll pull loose now that I've loosened it. They do appear to be lubricated, which is good. There's no anti-rotation built into the rail. It has Ruger's unique gas block. It uses one set screw. And we have this proprietary barrel nut for their rail. Let's check them all real quick. That one was pretty loose. That was tight. Let's see if this is the same way if we go reverse. Nope, the front ones are all loose. The rear ones are tight. And this does have a unique clamp design, so that might be normal for this. One thing I have experienced in the past from Ruger ARs is the muzzle devices and barrel nuts are normally extremely tight. Yep, loose in the front, tight on the back. I'm not sure if they're using a torque wrench for these. Normally they would have very equal breakaway if they were installed with the torque wrench. I'm not saying they weren't, but just my suspicion that they were just hand tightened. These are also YFS screws, but you don't have to worry about the screws in this place because it's not as sensitive an area as the carrier key is. That one's not moving. Things are super tight. Almost friction fit. Could heat them up like a BCM rail. And this one we're going to take to the vise. Wow. Very tight. All right, let's check the gas block screws for the gas box. Let's see if they put anything on the threads. Is there a dimple? It's a pointed screw. No dimple. They just use a pointed screw to lock into the barrel. So what I'm going to do here is I'm going to put it back because I plan to look in here to see if the gas systems are lined up. It looks like there's no thread locker. There should be something on here. I don't use red personally, but it's better than nothing. So without removing that, let's see if these muzzle devices will come loose on these before we attempt to get the gas system off. These muzzle devices don't require timing, so hopefully they didn't go crazy on them. No thread locker, just ooga doogas. We're going to check for thread run out. It's a scary sound if you don't know what you're listening for. Nothing on it. Oh, look at that. We got some metal in there. Super rough threads. Seems that these guns are behaving much differently between the front sight base models and the railed models. So let's see what we get with the railed models. Maybe they're tighter, maybe they're looser. No, they were a little looser. But again, still just ooga dooga. That's a whole lot of torque. They're not using a crush washer here, so they're relying on torque to keep things in place. There's our barrel markings right there. That one was pretty light. No thread locker again. Personally think they should have used crush washers on these. Tried to limit the torque value. Too much torque on your muzzle device can constrict the bore and cause some accuracy issues. In regards to what some may think of Ruger, these barrels are marketed as hammer forged, which means that if they're done right, actually quite a good barrel. Doesn't mean it's an accurate barrel, but it means it lasts a long time. We got one left. Let's see if I break it. Nope. No thread locker. All right, I'm going to take all these off and I'm going to check them for thread concentricity. I'm not worried about keeping these muzzle devices with the same barrels because these are a non-timed model. When I put them back on there though, they're going to be timed so the flats are on the side because that's how OCD bros roll. You know you're one of them if you're watching this video. Okay. Thread concentricity gauge. This tells us whether or not this barrel is within 4 thousandths of center line, and it is. That's nice. That means that unless your suppressor or your suppressor mount is off, you shouldn't have any baffle strikes, assuming you don't have some messed up ammo. I feel bad for manufacturers though, because they'll tell people to, you know, stick to certain ammo or to do things a certain way, and you can only stupid proof something to a certain point, and there's always a person that'll find a way to be a better idiot to break something. So manufacturers have an uphill battle making sure stuff is as idiot proof as possible. All these barrels are passing, which is pretty impressive. I spoke too early when we were checking stuff with headspace. Maybe the same thing will apply here. We have our 2 front base uppers to check. Oh, there's the first one. So upper number 1. Fail. Number 6. It's like I'm a wizard or something. I'm just calling this stuff right before it happens. I'm kidding. That one passes. So number 1 and 6. We're going to pause the video. I'm going to get my Boroscope stage up here, and I'm going to look down the upper receivers to see if the gas system's lined up before I rip the gas system off, and then we attempt to get the barrel off. I'm not going to bring it up on the camera unless I see something bad. So you'll have to have a little faith in me to say that everything's all right if I say it's all right. We'll be right back. All right, everyone, we're back. I'm checking with the Boroscopes. The inside of these barrels look really clean. Same thing that I would expect from a decent hammer forged barrel or a good hammer forged barrel. But both of the units with the front sight bases have misaligned gas systems. So I'm looking up into the gas system right now. We have a gas system illuminator in the gas tube, and we're looking up into the gas port from inside the barrel, and you can see that little crescent moon in the lower side. So it's not significant, but it is misaligned. So we're going to take this out, and I'm going to go to the other upper receiver, see if I can detect the same problems. I have to get this thing lit up again. Turn the lights back on. There's our gas port. Right there. Turn the lights off. And there's our misalignment on that one, so you guys can see it. Not significant. You can see me a little bit. But it is misaligned. I'll let you guys see the inside of these barrels real quick, just so you can see that they look nice. And then we'll get to removing the gas systems and trying to get these barrel nuts off. Change the focus. But extremely smooth barrel. Alright, we're going to pause the video and get these things mocked up, but I wanted to show you guys that both of these front sight base models slightly misaligned. As long as they have enough gas flow based on the gas port size, that misalignment won't cause a cycling issue. Now, if it was a 300 blackout and we're shooting subsonic ammo and it had that misalignment, that might be a problem. But right now, it's just a little data point. Hang tight. We'll be right back. All right, everyone, we're back. We're going to see if all these gas systems are loose. No thread locker on the set screws. That one's a little tight. Does it have anything on it? It looks like no. Yeah, these don't have thread locker on. In my opinion, that is a problem. They also didn't dimple these. They should be dimpled. That one little pointy screw isn't going to do nearly enough to hold this stuff in place. Let's see if we can get these front sight bases knocked loose. We're doing this so we can measure the gas ports. Too small. That's our taper pin. That's our front side base coming off. We can measure our gas port. Let's get this one locked up. Those pins aren't very tight. And there's our gas port again. Let's see if I can get these to move forward. The good news is the gas blocks on these are pretty tight. That means it has some good efficiency between the barrel and the gas block. I'll come back to that one. I have to get a plastic punch. Make sure I didn't do anything with the set screw. No, that's not tight. Plastic tip punch. I'm just throwing stuff everywhere because I don't care. Knocking them all over like dominoes. Wasn't too tight, but all of them just have basically a little dimple in there from where they crank down on this pointy screw. I'm going to pause the video while I find a barrel nut wrench that's going to fit this, and then we'll be right back. Hello everyone, we're back. We're going to see if these barrel nuts are over tightened. We have our breaker bar on here, Midwest URR. Not bad. Let's get the next one. Just go down the row real quick and see if we can break them free. We got to check our feed ramps to make sure we don't have any overhang. Not bad. I don't want to say anything because every time I say something, something bad happens. That one was probably under torqued. That was gun number 3. That took almost no force to pop loose. The other ones I would guesstimate had at least 30 to 40 on them. This one's a little tighter. 3 more left. Not bad. These are going to use a different wrench. Oh yeah. The whole thing's twisted. So now we have to break out our secret weapon. Use the URR and clamshell blocks. It'll prevent the upper from twisting. Now we're trying to break torque. Yeah, that was way over torqued. It's still fighting too. Because of the barrel nut. This thing is now tight. There we go. It was tensioning against itself as I tried to loosen it. Alright, let's go to the next one. That's over torque. That's what I'm used to. That's over tightened because the teeth have to be aligned for the barrel nut. So sometimes people go a little bit crazy on them when it comes to torque value. Really tight. It's trying to break the barrel nut. Look, it's rolling the teeth over. So this one is going to get a replacement barrel nut in place of the Ruger one, because the teeth are damaged. There it goes. It has grease on it, but they just went crazy. Let me get my illuminator. Just snug this back up real quick. And we're going to check these feed ramps. All right, let's see if we have any clickers. See if anything clicks. Ramps look good on this one. Let's go to the next one. Ramps look good. No clicking. Ramps are good. Ramps are good. Good here. What I'm checking for is to see if the upper receiver ramps are sitting higher than the barrel extension ramps. And they're not. This is very good. This is a very common problem with AR-15s. Some M4 ramps don't align with other M4 ramps on upper receivers. These are all good. Let's pen gauge these gas ports. So what we have here is a 16-inch barrel carbine length gas system, and we're at a 0.68 right now. 0.69. It's getting large. 71. To put this in context, mil-spec gas port is roughly 0.62 for a 16-inch or 14.5-inch carbine length gas system. So 0.71. That's really overgassed. 71. That's a 71. They're all 71s. So what does that mean? That means my initial assessment earlier when it came to the H2 buffers is going to be right. We may have to go to a different spring. We're using the white spring as far as our baseline. So that might not be a good solution. We may have to go to a heavier spring to account for things being a little overgassed. Now, I understand why Ruger does this with the larger port. People that buy these guns more than likely are going to shoot cheaper ammo through the gun, and if you don't have a large enough port, the gun won't run with the cheap ammo. People will buy something like a Colt that has a mil-spec size gas port, and then they'll complain when it doesn't run something like Tula or Brown Bear or something like that. So there's a fine line you have to walk when it comes to what's the proper size. Well, it depends on what you want to shoot. What type of fuel are you going to feed the machine? If you feed it weak fuel, it doesn't have the right amount of power if you have a small port, so you need to open it up. You put a big port in it, and then you put hotter ammo in it, and then the gun's overgassed. So you can't win, you can't lose. Depends on what you want to shoot. But 0.71 gas port, by all standards, that's overgassed. We're going to pause the video, do a couple more things. We'll be right back. All right, everyone, we're back. I did gauge the end of the gas tubes to make sure they were the proper size, and all of them did pass. There's some other things that we gauge in class when it comes to the gas tubes, and they did pass that as well. So gas tubes are good. What we're going to do now is we're going to do some gauging of the barrels, and then the barrels that had the shorter headspace, we're going to go back and check to see if maybe it was the bolt causing the headspace issue or the barrel, only a couple of them. And then we're going to do some other additional checking of the chamber. So let's get the 556 gauge. We'll put these off to the side, and we'll get moving. So let's do muzzle erosion. We'll just go down the line and do them all since the barrels are pointing at me. Erosion's good. Basically a 1. 1. 1. I don't know why this one spun the wrong way. I have to blame that on someone else. That one won't start, and that one won't start. Sometimes when they cut the crown, it leaves a little burr. So that's good. Let's do the throats. Basically a 1, and then straighten this gauge. Good. Throat erosion gauge. 0, 1. Why do we measure erosion on a new gun? Because it gives us different starting places. 1. 1. I just want everyone to know that my wife is pushing me around behind the scenes because she doesn't have the right angle she wants. It's a 1. And it is straight. It's also a 1. Someone's going to get offended, like, yeah, what you talking about that straight stuff in your videos? That's a 1. And we're all good. Let's check our chamber. This is checking for proper 556 chamber dimensions. It's not headspace. Headspace is the length of the chamber. This is making sure it's the right diameter here in the neck area, and also it has a proper throat, proper 556 throat. So we're going to drop this in here, give it a little tappy tap, and it has a little bit of a stick. It's on the edge of not being 556, but it passes. Same here. Better. The ones with the rail seem to have a little bit more of a generous throat. Good. These are all passing. Basically, this gauge will stick with a lot of force. That one was good. If the throat or something is wrong with the chamber dimensions, and these are all good. Let me look at our spec sheet to see which ones had short headspace. Space was number 2 and 3. So 2. Headspace issue was the bolt then, because this is passing the go gauge. And this one passes as well. So both of the ones that had the shorter headspace, it's not the barrels causing the issue, it's the bolt themselves. So we have one more check we're going to do, which is going to be our what we call magazine lip drag test. Everything else is good to go on this. We still have the things that we plan to do to these upper receivers. When we put them back together, I'm going to put crush washers on them. I'm going to dimple the barrels. We're going to make sure that everything's aligned and torqued up properly. The big problem that we have with these guns is the bolt carriers. So we can make the lowers great with a couple parts changes. We can make the uppers great with a couple parts changes, but these bolt carriers are going to be a problem. So we're going to pause the video, get these mocked up so we can do our magazine lip drag test, and then we'll be wrapping this up. All right, everyone, we're back. I have these guns mocked up so we can do our magazine test. To do this test, the hammer has to be removed, the buffer and spring has to be removed, and the bolt has to be stripped down to just the carrier itself. Basically, what we're looking for is we're going to do a back and forth test to make sure that the carrier doesn't bind on anything as it's all assembled, and then we're going to check to make sure that the cutouts on the bottom of the carrier doesn't interfere with the magazines that were provided with the rifle. You have to gut the magazine or put a blocking plate in here of some type so the follower doesn't bind the carrier up. So first thing we're going to do is just make sure that it doesn't do anything to bind up when we're going back and forth. And I'm just going to go down the row to show you whether or not they pass this test. So far they're good. Good. I'm being very easy so we don't scratch stuff up. We're good. Good. And believe it or not, there's a lot of guns out there that will fail this initial test because the buffer tube might not be threaded straight, the lower receiver might not be threaded straight. We got a little bit of binding there. No, it went home though. All right, so magazine, we're going to put pressure on it, and it's failing the test. See, we let go. So that means if you go prone with this gun with these magazines, it could cause some binding of the carrier. Let's try it with a metal mag. Metal magazine, gutted, locks in, go forward with it, and we have binding as well. Alright, so gun number 1 has some issues. Let's see what gun number 2 does. Gun number 2 passes the test. Gun number 3. Gun number 3 passes the test. Gun number 4 fails the test. Let's try it with the metal mag. Passes with the metal mag. So gun number 4 could be a problem. Gun number 5. Gun number 5 is failing the test. See if I let go. Let's try it with the metal mag. No problem with the metal mag. Fails. See? Fails. So these 7, 6, 5, 4 would pass with a metal mag. Metal mags take up less real estate at the feed lips. That's sometimes why they'll pass this test. I suspect that this is the bolt carrier. So give me 1 second. Let me go grab a good bolt carrier and we'll be right back. All right, let's do number 1, which gave us the most problems, and see if a different bolt carrier will give us different results. What do we do with the plastic mags? They're right here. It passes. Fails. So this one, it could be the upper receiver or the lower receiver causing it. If the upper receiver, the hole was drilled too low, or the magazine catch here was drilled too high, it can cause the mags to sit high in the gun. So gun number 4, it's not the carrier. Gun number 5. Upper or the lower. Sometimes you just got to play around and find the right bolt carrier that will pass this test, upper and lower. Alright everyone, we had a memory issue on our camera, so we're doing our check right here. On this one, we talked about this one, it failed as well, so we have basically 3 of them that have potential either upper or lower receiver issues. We're going to go to the last one here and see if we can get this to pass. Nope, not going to move. Take that one out. And this one as well, as soon as I let go of the mag. And I can get a lot of resistance. I cannot move that with my finger. As soon as I let go of the mag, it falls. So let's repeat with the metal mag. Push hard, see? So this is where you can have some tolerance issues with certain guns. This isn't specific to Ruger. Other brands have this. I see this just about every day. Every class we have an issue with magazine sensitivity. I just hurt myself there. Pins are ridiculously tight. So gun 7654, potential upper lower receiver compatibility. When it comes to plastic mags, gun number 1 we were able to get working by changing the bolt carrier. So this one was the bolt carrier that caused it to be mag sensitive. And these 4 were the receivers themselves causing them to be mag sensitive. And what I mean is by the bolt carrier is this area here. So this right here is usually not cut wide enough, and the magazine is riding inside of it. So just a piece of information. That mag might not be any more good, but that's it everyone. This is the summary over here. We're going to walk over. Move this stuff out of the way. Stuff's just falling down from our organizer. Trying to make me mad. So gun number 7, we had misaligned gas port. All the guns had a 71 gas port. Barrel nut was over torqued. We had a clocked buffer tube. Castle nut under torqued, wasn't staked. Buffer detent wasn't held down right. Notched hammer, weak hammer spring, YFS carry key screws. Firing pin was binding. I'm misremembering some of my stuff. This is yellow for the bolt carrier. What do we have this? Deep ejector. Ejector was sitting low. And then we have R3B. That was for, my wife's just smiling at me, so I'll remember it later. Number 6, we had 71 port, over torqued barrel nut. Basically the same problems with pretty much all the lowers. Some of them had the carry key gap that wasn't enough. Some of them had misaligned bolt carrier keys. They all had rough tails inside the bolt carrier except for 7 and 8. I'm going to go through all of the lists and I'm going to list them in the descriptions for each one of the videos, even though this is video number 3. Like I said, there will be a video number 4, and we'll talk about what we're going to actually change on these guns. But before we get to video number 4, I have to get with Ruger, reach out to them either via phone call, via email, and see if they're willing to replace these bolt carriers. It's 7 guns, so if they want to pay to send them all back, more than welcome to do that, but it seems a little silly when just some new bolt carriers will get these things back up and running. But at this point, it's their show. If they don't take care of replacing the bolt carriers, we're still going to get these things up and running. I'll let you know what bolt carriers we choose to use in video number 4. But we'll see. Once we have all these done, then these will be put up on the website. I'm not going to link any of that stuff. If you want to look at one of these, you might be interested in picking one up. You'll have to figure out how to do that because YouTube's very restrictive about what we're talking about right now. So you'll have to engage your brains and go looking around and see if you can find one. And the main point of this wasn't to try to put something up for sale, but to teach you what you might get on the rack if you buy a Ruger. This is an example of 7. It's not representative of every product they make, but it is a pretty wide sampling, and this is a random sampling. This is not something that Ruger cherry-picked and sent to me. This is something that I picked up from a distributor as an FFL, and they had no ability to intercept it before I got a hold of it. We're going to do this with other companies, assuming that we're able to turn these over, and my wife's just knocking them over like dominoes. We can turn these around and go to the next series, which would be Smith & Wesson M&Ps. I believe the newer model is the Sport 3. But like I said, I'll do a summary in the description of each one of the videos. It might take me till midday tomorrow to go ahead and compile all that. But enough rambling. I hope you found this video educational, and thanks for watching.